So you book the cruise. Now what? There's some really important things you need to do as soon as you book a cruise. And we make these mistakes all the time. Number one, there's several things you want to do as soon as you book that cruise. Some things are really deadline oriented. One thing I want you to do first is check your documentation. Make sure that you have your passports, your visas. Sometimes people assume the cruise line is going to take care of the visas, especially for an international cruise.
They do not always do that.
You could be in for a very rude surprise when you show up at the port. So that's essential to make sure you can go where you want to go. The next thing is I always book my flights early. If you're going somewhere, whether it's a domestic cruise or you're going overseas, don't wait to book your flight. You'll save so much money booking early. So many people, they wait. And book a flight that will get you in there the night before. I mean, I hear this all the time. People miss their cruises all the time. Even we've talked to people in airports and they're like, yeah, I was supposed to be in yesterday and here I am trying to rush to get to this. I've already missed the port. It happens all the time. Be easy on yourself. Go ahead and fly in the day before, the night before. If something happens, you won't panic. Stay at a hotel and get up in the morning. Maybe you stay somewhere where the cruise ship is and you can see it. It's really exciting. And it's the best way to do it. Same thing. If you're going to book a hotel, don't wait to the last minute. A lot of people wait to the last minute and then the hotel rates are sky high. Just book yourself a refundable hotel and then you can always rebook it. If rates go down, you just rebook it. I always book refundable in those cases. Even if it's a little bit more, it's worth it.
The next thing you want to do is download the cruise line app. They have all kinds of essential information, including daily schedules, deck plans, onboard services, a lot of things you can book in advance using the app.
Some people wait until they're at the ports where they no longer have internet and then they're panicking because they don't have the app. You can do a lot with cruise line apps these days. Every cruise line is a little bit different of what they feature. But like Monica mentioned, many times have the ability to pre-book a lot of things through the app. Plus, it's fun. It gets you really excited about the cruise. Now, going along with that, set up your online check-in as soon as you can.
This is also key.
Very, very important. Some cruise lines, you have to wait until you do your final payment, which is pretty typical. Once you do your final payment, go ahead and do the online check-in. You want to know why? Because if you wait to do the online check-in, you may get a very late check-in time. That's going to work to your disadvantage many different ways because many times you need to board to book certain shows, certain restaurants, special events. And if you're getting on 3 p.m, you've missed out. Everybody else, 2,000 other people may have gone on before you, and you're not going to get first choice at anything. In addition, you're probably going to miss some nice free lunch. Typically, we've showed up sometimes, we've been given a really late check-in time, and then we realize there's really nothing for us as far as food goes. We have to wait sometimes till dinner. And that's the last thing you want to do is starve yourself right on a cruise. But it's really, really important. And I can tell you, even recently, after all these cruises, there's been times I sometimes just wait and then I get like a really late check-in time and I feel like they're taking away one of my days. You can start using the pool, the activities. You've already paid for it. You've paid for that day, the boarding day. Why do you want to get on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? So check in early. You'll be really happy you did.
The next thing you want to think about doing is making your specialty dining reservations. Now, you may not want to do any specialty dining, but if you do, these will book up pretty quickly, especially if it's a shorter cruise. So reserve seats at specialty restaurants early.
And something really great is a lot of cruise lines these days will give you discounts if you'll book early. They'll send you emails, but even if they don't, go online and you might find 20, 30, 35% savings just by booking early. And you get your choice at times. Same situation I've seen so many times when even I've waited a little bit to book and all of a sudden all they have is like 9 o'clock at night and there's just no options. It's so nice when you just have your schedule. It's already set and you know exactly where you're going at your preferred time. In addition, some cruise lines, like for instance, like Viking, etc., do not allow you to book until a certain date. And sometimes what they do is if you're in a suite, you can book 6 months early. And then people in the junior suites can book 5 months early. Then everybody else 4 months early. What you want to do, know the policy and the terms of your cruise line that you're on and put a date into your calendar because you will forget. It could be months from now. And that day, when that day comes up, you want to be booking. We've done this before. We're like, it's midnight somewhere and we know that the calendar is turning over and it's our turn. And trust me, we've seen some cruises, like we've done some Viking cruises where we almost literally see in real time things getting picked off. And it's a bit of a race, but do yourself a favor. Don't be left with all the leftover crumbs. Cruise ships these days, they go out at 100% plus capacity. You will miss out if you do not book early.
Yep. So stay on top of it and you'll come out ahead.
book shore excursions early. Now, we're not huge fans of cruise line shore excursions. There's another video I'm going to link down below. We could save you hundreds of dollars, maybe even thousands, just like we do for ourselves every single cruise. Watch that video. But there are going to be some shore excursions that just make sense to book through the cruise line. Once again, they book up. I even know cruises that we have coming up. We've looked at some and we've waited a little bit because sometimes when you do book them, you are paying upfront. I know sometimes you don't want to give the cruise line the money that far in advance. They're all refundable typically, so don't worry about that. But try to have that balance between paying them far in advance to getting your preferred time, because you might find that they have two that go out that day. One's at 7 in the morning, one's at 10. You may want to go out at 10 in the morning, or the most popular ones could book up. The same goes if you book for yourself or you use other tour companies, they book up.
Another thing that I recommend doing is joining a cruise-specific forum or a social media group. What we've noticed in our last few cruises is someone, typically another passenger, will create a Facebook group for that specific sailing. So you can search Royal Caribbean and the day of the cruise, and it'll bring up a group that you can join. And it's very cool for a lot of reasons. What you can do is get to know other people post about the cruise. People post fun stuff about the cruise, and then they post during the cruise. Also, you can team up on shore excursions, and maybe sometimes you need a group of at least 6 or something to do a certain shore excursion.
We've done this a lot. There's a lot of cruises where we've gotten a group together. I didn't know any of them, and it's worked out fantastic. I've never really had a bad experience with it. So we've done this in the past on Cruise Critic, which you can also go to cruisecritic.com, go to the roll call, and like Monica said, just look for Royal Caribbean or Norwegian cruise lines, and then start to drill down on your specific ship and date. Same with Facebook. You may want to look for your specific ship and date to find it. Virtually always there is one on Cruise Critic or Facebook or both. And yeah, it's a great way to get some really excellent private tours. You all share the expense, and it has worked out fantastic.
Then the next thing I do is create a personalized packing list for that specific sailing, for that actual trip. It'll be based on your itinerary. Look at the activities that you're doing and try to determine what you need to go on this cruise. Look at the cruise dress code. They're a lot more casual than they used to be, but sometimes they have a theme night. So you may want to plan in advance what you're going to bring on the cruise.
Yeah, normally for me, about 15 minutes before we go, that's when I start to activate my packing and my list. But Monica is way more organized than I am when it comes to that. And it is a good idea. There's some cool things you can bring. Some people bring magnetic hooks because the rooms tend to be all metal, all the walls and everything. So you can do some things with that. I'd also recommend bring a power strip as well. Bring some extra power strips with USB connectors, because you'll be surprised sometimes, especially on a little bit older ships, there's not a lot of plugs, or there may not be USB. So by bringing a power strip, you're going to be way better off, and bring one which has some cord, because sometimes it's in a really awkward place. So you may want that as well. But don't bring usually anything with a surge protector in it, because the cruise line could take that from you. So I typically have traveled with a plug that has USB and several plugs, and then it has a cord. So it's been really flexible, but doesn't have the surge protection. So I haven't had to worry about it. Definitely plan your onboard activities as soon as you can. Do some research. Go to those Facebook groups like Monica mentioned. Learn about some of the shows that are going to be on board. Once again, same thing. Many times you can book shows, classes, events in advance. Not every cruise line. Some are different. For instance, when we've sailed on Virgin, we've been able to book our restaurants early, but the shows we can only book when we're on board. So I gave you an earlier tip about getting on board earlier. There was one cruise that we went out of Singapore down to Australia. We had a really late time that we got on board, like 2, 3 o'clock. And unfortunately, by the time we got on, you had to connect to the ship's Wi-Fi to start booking. A lot of the spots were already gone. So we would have been way better off if we had boarded at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. This is another reason you want to board early.
The same with, like, in the gym, they have classes. A lot of those classes, spin classes, or what other classes they have, they'll all book up too. Sometimes we go straight to the gym when we get on and just book the classes we want, so we don't have to worry about it later.
Yeah, it's great advice. If you do want to do like those type of classes, workouts, it can be a race. Same thing. Just go to the gym. If you've gotten on early, you'll be ahead of everybody. Later that day or the next day, they start to sign up. You're already top of the list. The spa as well. If you haven't made reservations online, which sometimes you can, same thing. Just go to the spa, make your reservations early, and then stress is over at that point. We'll have another video where we talk about what to do when you're on the ship. So that's a little bit different, but these are some things you can do off the ship as well. Another thing I would recommend is decide if you're going to get internet or not. If you're not, no big deal, but make sure that your cell phone provider has a plan if you're doing an international cruise. Even if you're going down to the Caribbean, You want to make sure that they have a package. A lot of times it's $10 per day. It can be expensive. If you're on T-Mobile, you have data, unlimited cell phones in, I think, 200 plus countries. That's who we use. There's also something called
Arolo, it's an eSIM, and they have them for all kinds of countries and regions. And it's a real fast, easy way to not use your cell phone data, but still be able to stay in touch.
Yeah, it can be super cheap. And a lot of times we can get $5, $10 in virtually any country or even a region. So I'll put a link down below in the description, and we'll probably cover this in a future video, but that's another good recommendation. Definitely one thing we would recommend is notifying your bank in advance if you have those kind of cards that or banks that are not used to you traveling that much or where you're going.
Because they may think it's fraud if you're suddenly down in Barbados trying to buy a t-shirt with your credit card.
Yeah, this has happened to us more often than we would like. I'm very lucky now. All my cards know that we're traveling a lot. I never have a problem. But Monica's had problems recently with a bank city that has multiple times.
I have cards that have never given me trouble, but I've got this one, and I've talked to them twice, and I've told them we're overseas, and every time I try to use it for anything, it's a fraud alert. So
Yeah, so
that
bring
card-
more than one card. That's another
yes.
thing. Bring multiple cards. Monica mentioned just be aware of theme nights on your cruise. There's been many times we boarded a cruise and we didn't realize there was a party or a white night or something, and then you're scrambling for something really junky in port. And if you're involved in the Facebook groups or on Cruise Critic, people have already been on that ship, the cruise line. They're going to let you know, and you're going to be really glad because you will be in for some surprises. Cruise lines, I think, do an awful job letting you know typically that these are going on. Some cruise lines are really good. Like Virgin, I've noticed, is really good at the pre-cruise emails and communication, but other ones, we had no idea until we got on that something special was happening on certain days.
But in that Facebook group, they'll be buzzing about it. So stay tuned to that.
Cabin upgrades. You may want to bid on an upgrade. I can't tell you how often I have missed the emails from the cruise lines about this. And if you miss the deadline, you can't put your bid in. And if you don't want to bid, you don't have to, but you can even put a low bid. I've heard so many stories of people putting the lowest bid, and sometimes they get lucky. Now, these days, cruise ships are very full, but it can happen. So my suggestion, it's on occasion leading up, check every few weeks to see if there's any emails from the cruise line. Maybe look at your specific confirmation number and do a search in Gmail for just that confirmation number. Look for something specific like that, especially when you're a few weeks out. That's when you want to start looking. You don't want to miss that if it's something you want to make an offer on, because you just may get it.
And speaking of other promotions, they will also be sending you offers on all kinds of different things. So pay attention to your email. And what we do is sometimes take them up on those offers in advance. That way we don't have to spend a lot of money.
Do some math. That's my next recommendation. I know some people may hate math, but there'll be drink packages, coffee packages, dining packages. Don't rush into them because the drink packages can be absurdly expensive, but maybe for you, it's worth it. Find out what drinks go for. Again, those Facebook groups are great for that. You can go online and you can actually search for menus and drink menus from that specific ship and see how much they are. If they're $14 each and you drink 15 a day, the package might be good for you. But if you're like, I'm going to have 1 or 2 drinks a day, it's not going to be good for you. It's just no way going to be worth it. So do the math on that when it comes to coffee packages, drink packages, dining packages. There's a point where it's worth it and it's very convenient. There's a point you're just better off paying as you go. Several other quick things. You may be worrying about the motion of the ocean. For me, I've always had this motion sensitivity. It seems crazy for somebody who's gone on almost 50 cruises, but I've never let it stop me and get in my way. My secret has been taking meclizine. And meclizine you can get on Amazon. It's generic for bonine, which you may have heard of. I would not personally get Dramamine because you're going to be super drowsy. Now, there is Dramamine, which is
The non-drowsy.
yeah, the non-drowsy. That usually is meclizine. So just look at the ingredients. Make sure that the ingredient, that's my personal favorite. You take one every 24 hours. You can chew it, and it's working really well. So I would suggest that personally. I'm not your doctor. You have to decide what you want to do for yourself. But that's been, for me, perfect. I take it always before we start the cruise. You can't wait until you're not feeling good. You have to do it early. So for me, one a day, I start before we board, and just one time a day, I take it for the whole cruise. Whether or not the ship's moving or not, I never think about it. There's sea bands, there's relief bands, there's ginger chews, there's all kinds of other solutions, but that's what we do.
Another thing you might want to do is bring some cash for tipping, which is optional, but you might want to leave some for your room steward, possibly the people who take the best care of you in the dining room.
Yeah, it's always a good idea. You don't have to do it if your gratuities, the cruise lines are virtually always going to charge you a fee per person per day, $15, $18 per person per day. I know it can add up, but it's going to a lot of people who are bending over backwards to give you an amazing trip and vacation. And some of these people are just incredible. So we do like to take care of them if they're going above and beyond for us. It's not required, but I would take a little extra cash to do that. And keeping this in mind, one thing we like to do is we keep a little notes just on our phone, on a notepad or Evernote or something like that. When you're really getting great treatment,
Mhm.
keep track of the name of the person, the staff. Look at their name tag if you can, because you'll never remember at the end of the cruise. So much of their compensation is based upon you saying that they did a great job for you and you helped them in XYZ
Exactly.
area. Put that on the survey. It means a lot. Some of them will tell you this, and that's great. We want them to get recognized, get a little bit more compensation, get a bonus, and also do the end of cruise survey. Be fair. You can be honest with everything. Don't expect perfection. Not everything might be a 10 out of 10, but you can still give it a 10 if for the most part it went well. It matters a lot. So don't score really low unless something really egregious happened. I would just try to be as nice as possible because usually the people bearing the brunt of the survey are the hardest working people on that ship. So just keep that in mind as well. Those are our top tips of things to do as soon as you book. I know it sounds like a little bit of work. It's not. It's pretty fun to do all of it. The planning and the leading up and the build up, that's a lot of the excitement. So don't cheat yourself of that either. Plus, you'll have a way better cruise if you're not stressed out running around and not getting any bookings. I've seen so many people getting upset. And then we just walk right in with our reservation. And we're like, why are you lining up? We've seen so many people lining up at dining rooms and waiting 45 minutes or an hour. We cruise right in because we have a reservation that we made 3 months before. So be that person. Make sure you have a great cruise.
If you liked all of our suggestions, please give us a thumbs up. And we'd love it if you could subscribe to our channel. Leave comments down below if there's anything you wanted to add or any other questions you have. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, if you have any tips that we missed, share it with everybody else because I'm sure we've missed some really great tips. We'd like to see those down below. It'll help us as well. Take care. Have a
All
great
right.
cruise.